we've already had two major trades happen this offseason. DeJounte Murray going to the Pelicans, and Mikal Bridges going to Knicks. But there is still a lot of other guys who can get traded, like Brandon Ingram, Lauri Markkanen, Walker Kessler. You got Brook Lopez, Cam Johnson, which are the five guys I want to look at in today's video. And we're just going to make a few trade proposals for all of them. So the first trade we're going to be looking at is Brandon Ingram getting traded to the Charlotte Hornets. And I think this is probably the least likely out of the four I want to look at for Brandon Ingram, but still. Grant Williams, Cody Martin, Nick Richards, and only one first. And you're like, why one first for Brandon Ingram? He's an all-star caliber player, whatever, yada, yada, yada. It's just that one right here, that one. And that expiring contract is big because you are going to have to be able to convince him to sign to Charlotte, which is not the easiest thing. It's not a free agent destination, whatever. And you get Grant Williams, who's a backup four, or could be backup four, could play some backup five for you, be a stretch big. Cody Martin probably want to get a lot of playing time in New Orleans. They have a good amount of wings. Still, Nick Richards can honestly be your starting center. Probably not with Zion, not the best fit, but backup center still helps. They have Daniel Tice and Yves Missi. That's it. And that's still one first round pick from Charlotte that if Brandon Ingram doesn't end up signing could still be a really good pick because that'd be his first year outside of whatever free agent destination he decides to go to in 2025. So it's a risk for Charlotte for sure. New Orleans gets a lot of role players, but I think this is probably just the least likely scenario. I don't think Charlotte's going to end up making a big move. I think they're kind of content where they're at, but still. So when I said 4 trades, I ended up cutting out one, so it's going to be 3 trades for Brandon Ingram. And this second one is Brandon Ingram going to the Memphis Grizzlies. This maybe wouldn't be the biggest thing for. So when I said 4 trades, I'm changing it to 3. And the second one is going to be Brandon Ingram going to the Memphis Grizzlies for Marcus Smart, Brandon Clark, Zaire Williams, and 1 first round pick. Again, with a 1 first round pick for an expiring contract because you were giving them 3 good role players, especially really just to match the salary. Marcus Smart for New Orleans side. Marcus Smart can be your backup one, your backup ball handler, which you really do need because you lost Dyson Daniels in the DeJounte Murray trade. Jose Alvarado is still a free agent. You can sign him back, so I expect him to. But you're thin at the point guard position. Brandon Clark can run some backup 5 for you, from backup 4, just be a rim runner. Zaire Williams didn't really live up to the potential in Memphis. He's really more here for salary reasons. And then the 1 first round pick for this year's draft. And for Memphis, you're trying, because I think Memphis is in the not Thunder, Timberwolves, and Nuggets tier. I think I'm forgetting one team in the West, and the Mavericks tier of the West, that S tier of the Western Conference. They're in a tier below, kind of their own, and with like them in Sacramento. And really, honestly, in their own tier with them, Sacramento, or themselves. Maybe Sacramento, maybe New Orleans. That's what I'm trying to say here. And you're trying to elevate yourself back into that first year of the Western Conference you were before last year, the last 2 years when you were, or 2 of the last 3 years when you were 1 seed, or not a 1 seed, a 2 seed. You were obviously going to lose a lot of depth. Marcus Smart was a great secondary ball handler for you. Brandon Clark honestly he probably started a few games at the 5, and you're thin at the 5. You have Zach Edey. Jaren Jackson didn't play great at the 5 last year, so maybe trading a guy who can run some 5 is not great. But still, there's options. There's still free agents. There's still a lot of centers on the trade block. And now you're running a lineup of Ja Morant, Desmond Bane, Brandon Ingram, Jaren Jackson Jr., and 5 to be named later, which would elevate you, I think, into the tier 1 of the Western Conference where you want to be. Now, I think this trade is the most likely place for Brandon Ingram, and it is the Houston Rockets because of the assets, because of the amount of tradable contracts that they have. And this one's a lot bigger, and I'll tell you why I've changed it from having 2 first-round picks in every one of these trades to 3. Dillon Brooks, be a backup wing for you, just backup spot-up shooter, really good defender. Jock Landale, backup big, kind of a theme. We want to give them backup bigs. You really do need... You just need backup big men. You need big men. You need big men in the room for New Orleans. You probably want to get a starter at one point, but Jack London can be backup. Jae'Sean Tate probably won't play every day, or every game, but still. And the Rockets own in 25 and 28 and a Phoenix first, that 27 Phoenix first being big, and the second round pick or whatever. Just don't mind that. And the reason I have 3 is because there's 2 types of contracts that require picks to be, or more picks, less picks, whatever, that hurt a team. Expiring deals, long contracts with a lot of money. And that is exactly what Dillon Brooks and Jack Londell is. You're committing $30.2 million for the next 3 years to both of them. That is a lot. And honestly, Houston has enough picks that they can shove all those picks to New Orleans. They have so many picks through Phoenix, through Houston, or through themselves, obviously, through Brooklyn. They have a lot. So it's worth it. I think this is probably the most likely scenario. Will the trade practice look like this? I don't know. I feel like this is probably what the player allocation would look like, was Brooks, Londale, and Tate. It gets you there money-wise. So, yeah. Next up, we're going to go to a couple Cam Johnson trades, who I would talk about Dorian Finney-Smith, but it seems like he will be traded to the Sixers, and it seems like that package is just going to be announced in the next couple days. So there's nothing really to talk about there. But Cam Johnson seems like the most likely guy to be traded in Brooklyn, and it seems like they've been shopping around with the first-round pick added to them. Will they be able to get that with his contract? I don't know. But one of the teams, probably most rumored to get him was the Cleveland Cavaliers. I thought he would end up getting traded there on draft night. He doesn't. So let's do Isaac Okoro, sign and trade, whatever contract he gets, going to Brooklyn. Didn't really work out just like how you wanted. Obviously, he didn't work out how you wanted in Cleveland, being a 4th overall pick. Decent spot-up shooter, decent defender, just 3-and-D without, I don't want to say 3-and-D without the 3, but it's just not great on both sides. Goes to Brooklyn, gets a fresh start, could start for them, whatever. Be on a bad team, just do his own thing. And a heavily protected, a top 10 protected first-round pick in 2031. I think it's going to be a heavily protected pick because they don't even have their own first-round pick till like 2030. And the Cavs get Cam Johnson. He can start. No, he can't start because unless they end up trading Jared Allen, I don't know that whole situation. But he can start at the 3, have a big lineup with Mobley or Jared Allen and Cam Johnson in your front court. He can be a backup, just spot-up shooter. He's a great fit in Cleveland. It's definitely a guy they should go after, and it seems like they are. And then a second Cam Johnson trade, it's really hard to find trades for Cam Johnson because of that contract to try to get him to a contender. But the Miami Heat have struck out on stars for so long. This is not a star. This is a guy who could start for you alongside Bam, Jimmy Butler, Tyler Hero, Terry Rozier. Just get a lot of shooting alongside Jimmy and Bam. I can't even say alongside Jimmy. Jimmy shot like 40% from 3 this year. And you trade him Duncan Robinson, Haywood Highsmith in the sign and trade. Just get that contract working out, and then an unprotected first-round pick. Unprotected because Brooklyn has to take on that Duncan Robinson contract, which honestly I don't think you would want to take out on a 2-year contract if you're the Nets, but you can buy him out at the end of his second year or whatever, and you get an unprotected first-round pick in Miami. And in 2026, after Jimmy Butler's free agency, you never know. So next up to Walker Kessler trades, and we talked about New Orleans needing a center, and this is giving them one. Jeremiah Robinson-Earl will provide nothing in Utah, and Walker Kessler will first off saying not have a great year. It seems like Utah is shipping him to a lot of different teams who need centers, and one of those teams is for sure the New Orleans Pelicans, and they have the picks that they can send low contract. Walker Kessler's not making anything being a late first-round pick. You can send to Jeremiah Robinson-Earl, send whatever low contracts they want. Just send a bunch of picks, whatever picks they want, or the Jazz want, and we'll just say 2 first-round picks is the asking price for Walker Kessler. And for New Orleans, it makes so much sense for both sides. Utah, it seems like they want to go full rebuild. They, obviously when you trade Rudy Gobert and Donovan Mitchell for what they did, that's obviously going for a full rebuild. But then Lowry becomes an all-star starter, and now you're like, you start winning more. And they've had some stretches where they're winning like 15 out of 20 games, and you don't want that in this position. And especially with this draft class coming up, you want to get into from like a tier above the bottom into the bottom fully. So maybe Walker Kessler is not a guy you want to trade in that situation, but it just seems like they don't want him. There's something that they didn't like, they don't like, and they'd rather just get the picks. It gives you another pick in this year's draft. It gives you one in 2027. And then another Walker Kessler trade is having him to the Memphis Grizzlies, who we also discussed needing a big. This gives them a big, obviously, a starting big, and Walker Kessler can play alongside Jaren Jackson. That's a great defensive front court, or just defensive big duo with him and Jackson Jr. And then you got Vince Williams, who maybe you don't want to trade because he started a bunch of games for you. He looked good, but you have GG Jackson. You can afford it. You don't want to do it, but you can afford it, and it definitely is going to entice Utah more, giving them like a good young player who can be a really good like role player for you in the future. You get a 2025 first. Again, getting an extra first in this draft is always great, but instead of being a full 2027 first, it's a swap, just because you are giving them Vince Williams, who is a really good player, who played very well, started a bunch of games for Memphis. And now up to the Lauri Markkanen trades. Now these are going to be much bigger. Lauri, obviously, he's again just like Brandon Ingram. Now, the Lauri trades are going to be bigger. I know, just like Brandon Ingram, he is going to be an unrestricted free agent. I feel like there's much more confidence in a team re-signing Lauri Markkanen. Why? I don't know. I just feel it. And also, so we'll talk about this one. Tyler Hero's contract is big, and Miami, they've been shopping him for all these big trades. And this one, you send them to Utah. For Utah, you get a spot up shooter of the future. You go full rebuild. Let's just say they pair this with one of the two Walker Kessler trades we made. You go full rebuild, whatever. And then 3 first-round picks you get from Miami, which those 2028, 2031 first-round picks can be looking real good. Really good. And for Miami, you get another star, and a star you have failed to get in the 5 years Jimmy Butler has been in Miami. And that lineup, Terry Rozier, Duncan Robinson, I don't know, whoever they start at shooting guard, but that front court of Jimmy Butler, Lauri Markkanen, Bam Adebayo is really good. It would be good. It would just be good to see Miami get that third star they've been trying to get for the past 5 years. And now, discuss the San Antonio Spurs. Now, you may be saying, with the next draft class, you shouldn't be wanting to trade away a first-round pick in it, and also having your first-round pick being significantly worse because you are starting to win. They still weren't a good team last year. Their pick ended up being 4th. Even with Wemby, and I know they got Chris Paul, but is that team still a team that's going to fight outside of the lottery, be a playing team, and you don't even have to worry about the draft without Lauri Markkanen? I don't know. I still think this is a lottery team, even with the Chris Paul, even with Wemby, whatever he's going to do next year in his second year. But you can just expedite all of this and say, we are ready to win with Wemby. Let's get him the second star through trades instead of through the draft. We've been drafting for a while. We have some good year-old players. Some good, hopefully third or fourth options on a championship winning team. You're hoping Lauri can be that second. Keldon Johnson, don't want to let go, but the contracts just work out perfectly. And these teams have a lot of cap space, so they don't have to worry about contracts as much. But still, Keldon Johnson could be just a nice role player in Utah. His work in Utah, whatever. That Atlanta pick can be super valuable. And maybe it's the Spurs' own first-round pick. They don't want to give up that Atlanta pick because they can win and still have a top pick. But that Atlanta pick can push it over the edge without DeJounte Murray there. Whatever, that could be a team. That could be a lottery pick. Will it be the first overall pick again? Probably not. But it can be in the 12 to 8 range at best. It's be great in next year's draft. 2026, 2027 first. Just gets Utah some picks, some of your picks. And you are basically saying, I think with Wemby, obviously the expectations were huge, but you did not expect him to be as good as he was, somehow being the most hyped up first round pick maybe besides LeBron James, maybe of all time. I think of all time, mainly because I wasn't alive in 2003. But you have this whole hype and he outlives it, and now you're like, let's win now. We can win now with Wemby, and you know you can. Get Lowry, put him alongside 7-foot duo. Lowry spaces the floor, Wemby spaces the floor. That's unstoppable. Chris Paul running the offense. That's maybe even not even just a playing team, a team that makes the 8 seed, makes the 7 seed. I get it for New Orleans. Makes a lot of sense. New Orleans. I've been used to saying New Orleans. I get it for Utah. I get it for San Antonio. Does the package look like this? Is it a little more? I don't know. Because it seems like, unlike Brandon Ingram, the bidding war for Lowry is super high between Miami. Sacramento got in the action. They're obviously out now. But really between Miami, San Antonio, and Golden State, that's a big bidding war that's going to last probably a week at least or more. So the price for Lowry is going to go up and up and up. So this can be higher. This could be just right. Who knows? And for the final package, we have him going to the Golden State Warriors. Now, I'm going to say 2 first-round picks may be low, but they don't have a lot of first-round picks they can trade because of the stepping rule. It's kind of tough. Andrew Wiggins is a big contract that you send over, but I assumed he would be flipped something. I don't know. It's a lot. It's a big contract that Utah has to take on, and I know they don't want to do that, but that may be the only way this trade gets done. Moses Moody hasn't got a lot of playing time in Golden State. Hasn't really, I don't want to say hasn't worked out in Golden State, but he could just use a fresh run, and Utah can be that. Brandon Podziemski played so well, and I know you don't want to give it up, but he was super good as a rookie, and you get him. You have 3 years of team control, and he can be great along whoever you want him to be great under, along with whoever Utah drafts or whatever. And a 2026 first-round pick, and then a 2028 first-round pick probably after Steph retires. That's big. It's a big pick. For Lowry, and you get off Jordan Clarkson contract, you trade at Jordan Clarkson, and now Golden State is looking to contend again. But like, I'm gonna be honest, that this trade probably puts them into like the tier we discussed earlier, the Memphis tier with maybe Sacramento and New Orleans in it. It's probably you have your tier 1, and then your tier 2 is Memphis, maybe by itself, and then you have Sacramento, maybe New Orleans, maybe Golden State, maybe even with the Lowry market trade. So I'm not the biggest fan of Lowry going to Golden State, just because you may just have to read the room and see it's ready to rebuild after Steph leaves. But if you really want to make a final push, this is not a bad offer. It's not too much, not a lot of not a lot of picks. Andrew Wiggins, you get off that contract, but giving up Pods, giving up Moody, it's a lot. Finally, let's have a little fun here. Let's just do it completely. This trade is not happening, especially after Chris Paul. But let's just have fun with it. Trae Young going to the San Antonio Spurs for Devin Vassell, Keldon Johnson, 4 first-round picks, including 3 of Atlanta's owned. One of them being a swap right, actually. And then a swap from San Antonio 2027. Is this trade happening anymore? No. Is it fun to think about? Yeah. But I think this is what a package would look like, and honestly, it's definitely too much for Trae Young. That's a lot for Trae Young, but it's fun. This was a fun one. These trades, honestly, so much more time to design and make than I thought they would be, but it is a lot of fun to do. Thank y'all for watching.